Week 1 is finally in the books, and now we have a rough idea of what each team is. Sure, it's only one game for each team, and it is a long season, so things will change, but now we have actual data on each NFL team, and we aren't confined to training camp hype. Optimism is still high for most teams in the NFL, but some teams have had a pretty rough week. So I will be looking at the top 5 storylines going into week 2. But before we get into that, I want to take a quick look back at the games that were played this week. 16 games were played this week, with half the league being undefeated and the other half looking for the first win. Let's start on Thursday. Eagles, Cowboys, a pretty good game before the weather delay, with both offenses firing. CD rubbed his fingers in butter during the break though. On Friday, Chiefs, Chargers. Turns out having a bottom 5 receiving core and no rushing attack may cause problems for an offense. It also turns out Greg Roman figured out how to run a passing offense, and Quentin Johnson got new hands. And on to the Sunday games. Bucks, Falcons, a divisional nail-biter. Emeka Egbuka is the next Bucks rookie that everyone is excited about. The Falcons may have their guy at quarterback, but they may need a new kicker. Bengals, Browns. Bengals starting off with the season with their usual early season struggles. Their offensive line still isn't good, and if it wasn't for the Browns not having a kicker, they would have started 0-1. Colts, Dolphins. Turns out the training camp reports were right about the Dolphins. They are bad and don't like McDaniels. Their secondary made Daniel Jones look good. I had low expectations for the Dolphins, but I didn't think it'd be this bad. Panthers, Jaguars. The Panthers were being overhyped, and Bryce Young turned back into a pumpkin. Nothing went right for the Panthers. Trevor Lawrence had a pedestrian performance, but it's not like he needed to do much with short fields and prime ETN showing back up. It got tank traded. Patriots, Raiders. 2 head coaches on new teams facing off against each other. Pete Carroll had the edge in this one. Being aggressive when it counted made the difference. I wouldn't worry about the Patriots just yet. Cardinals, Saints. Cardinals won a game they should have, though it was a bit closer than most people thought it'd be. Marvin Harrison was actually involved in the offense. The rest of the team did enough. Props to the Saints for playing tough though. Steelers, Jets. The expected result, not the expected score. Prime Rodgers made his return and Justin Fields actually played well at quarterback. No defense was played until the end. These teams might be fun to watch. Commanders, Giants. Commanders did enough to win. Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt is RB1, Debo actually had a nice game, and Jaden Daniels kept up his momentum from last year. Russell Wilson was booty, and Dart may soon become QB1. Broncos, Titans. Broncos defense was doing its job, the offense was not. Little worried about Bo Nix, but it is week 1. Cam Ward was okay, but his receivers did not do him any favors. Calvin Ridley is not that guy. 49ers, Seahawks. A sloppy game all around. Brock Purdy is clearly not an elite quarterback, and it showed. But he did throw the game-winning touchdown to a receiver that no one's ever heard of, and Nick Bosa called game. Neither team inspires confidence after this game, especially the injuries. Lions, Packers. The Lions really missed their coordinators, and the Packers defense might actually be good. Texans, Rams. A game that puts you to sleep. The Texans still have the same problems from last year. What good are all those receivers if your quarterback is on the ground? Their defense clearly won't be a problem though. Ravens, Bills. Already in contention for the greatest game this season, and I guarantee most people turned it off before it ended. The Ravens choked away a 2-score lead with half the 4th quarter gone, and Derrick Henry punctuated his amazing performance with a fumble that allowed the Bills back into the game. This scenario happens far too often for me to take the Ravens seriously as a Super Bowl contender. And for the last game of week 1 on Monday night, Vikings, Bears. The more things change, the more they stay the same for the Bears. This time they pulled off their best Ravens impression. Then again, J.J. McCarthy was a completely different quarterback in the 4th quarter. The Bears were playing Nathan Peterman in the first 3 quarters, and then Josh Allen in the 4th quarter. Congrats on the great debut though. Now that we went briefly through every game played this week, I wanted to look at 5 storylines going into week 2. The first set of storylines I want to look at is the rookie debuts. This is the first time we actually get to watch the rookies play a full game in the NFL, and we get an idea of how they will be used moving forward. There's too many rookies to look through, so I'm just going to focus on a few. The first one I will look at is the number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward. The Broncos were a tough draw for a rookie quarterback, and they made it Tough for him. He was sacked 6 times, which ties the record for the most times a rookie quarterback was sacked in their debut. He did make some nice throws, but in a critical situation, he got himself sacked out of field goal range. That's a mistake you can't make if you want to win. His wide receivers were of no help either. Calvin Ridley does what he does best, dropping balls. He's not in a good situation, and this year probably won't be great, but you would want to see improvement out of him throughout the year. The next player I will look at is the next pick after Cam Ward, Travis Hunter. In terms of overall debuts, it wasn't all that impressive, but there are a few takeaways from it. The Jaguars definitely favor him on offense. He played a majority of his snaps at wide receiver, and when he was in the game, he was targeted a lot. He had 8 targets, which is the most out of anyone on the team. He didn't do much with the receptions since they were mostly short passes, but it's clear that he will be a vocal point of this offense. On defense, he only played 6 snaps. He played fine, but he did allow a reception to fellow rookie Tet McMillan. Cohen later explained the lack of defensive snaps was due to him missing time in training camp, and they didn't want to rush him. So his snap share on defense is expected to rise throughout the season. There also wasn't much of a reason to put him in much, since the Jaguars held a pretty comfortable lead throughout the game. So no need to risk injury when the defense is doing just fine. The next rookie I want to look at is Tyler Warren. The Colts are heavily using him, and it makes sense since they spent a first-round pick on him. Against the Dolphins, he had the most targets with 9 and the second most yards, only behind Pittman. They were also moving him around the formation, trying to get the ball in his hands, even using him in a short yardage situation to get a first down. With a player this versatile, it makes sense to move him anywhere you can. I made a joke earlier in the offseason that he could probably win this QB battle if he wanted to, so I actually wouldn't be surprised if at some point during the season they actually use him at quarterback for a trick play. The last first-round rookie I will look at is Emeka Egbuka. He was impressive on Sunday. 4 of 6 for 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. Even got a carry for 9 yards. In the absence of Chris Godwin, Egbuka shined and may solidify himself as the wide receiver 2 by the time Godwin comes back. He had a significant amount of targets with 6, and he got the game-winning touchdown. He's actually the first rookie in 20 years to catch a game-winning touchdown in his debut. This rookie section is starting to get a bit long, so I'm going to be brief. There were a lot of rookies that did well this weekend, but I'm just not going to be able to get to them. Comment your favorite rookie on your team and how they did. One more rookie I did want to mention is Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. He had a nice day against the Giants, and he had the lion's share of touches in the backfield. So it's clear he's taken over the starting role, but we will see if that keeps up through this season. The next storyline I want to look at is the coaching debuts of the new head coaches around the league. Of the rookie head coaches, Liam Cohen was the only one to get a win. Yes, I know Pete Carroll also won, but I would hardly call him a rookie. Kellen Moore is on a bad team, but he did get his team to put up a fight, though the clock management before halftime was questionable. Brian Schottenheimer had a tough matchup against the Super Bowl champs, but he also put up a pretty good fight. If CD could catch something, they could have won that game. Aaron Glenn also had a pretty solid performance. They took the Steelers down to the wire in a shootout. Ben Johnson had a nice script in the first few drives for Caleb Williams, but when it got off the script, Caleb Williams couldn't make a throw. So I don't put it entirely on Ben Johnson, but I don't know if he's able to develop Caleb Williams. However, of the first-time head coaches, Cohen was the one to pull out a win. Granted, it was against the weakest opponent out of all the rookie head coaches, but it's still a good sign. The most important part was showing progress for the offense, and there were clear signs. The Jaguars' run game last year was at the bottom of the league. It was a big factor in the Jaguars' win against the Panthers since they rushed for 200 yards. The run game is a specialty of Cohen's, and he also turned the Bucs' run game from bottom of the league to top 5 last year, though it's still to be determined if the passing game has improved. The next big storyline is the Chiefs. They did not look good against the Chargers. Justin Herbert was tearing them apart on defense. They lost their number 2 wide receiver, and they had no run game, though they only did lose by 1 score. But a lot of the issues present last year are still present this year, when they went 15-2. But it didn't look that way. The way they played last season was not sustainable, and it will catch up to them this year. Maybe. Also, maybe not. But all I know is they looked immortal on Friday. It's really up to the other AFC teams to draw the dagger. The next big story is the Packers defense. They stifled the Lions offense. They really couldn't do anything all game. The Lions' only touchdown of the day came in the final 2 minutes of the game. It was a pretty impressive touchdown though. But that defense was constantly harassing Jared Goff. And they held one of the best running back duos in the league to just 2 yards a carry. Impressive after trading away one of the better run stuffers on the team. But speaking of that trade, Micah Parsons was making his presence felt. He had 3 pressures and a sack in the limited snaps he had. The offense for the Packers was okay. It did enough to get the job done. But as long as that defense keeps playing like this, the Packers will be one of the top NFC teams. The last storyline I will talk about is the Ravens vs. Bills Sunday night football game. This game is going to be up there for game of the year. And to have that on opening weekend is kind of crazy. And the sad thing is, I turned the game off after Derrick Henry scored his second touchdown. The Ravens were dominating for most of the game, and I had to be up early on Monday, so I just turned it off. I wake up to one of my fantasy teams losing. I was up 60 going into the night, and my opponent had Josh Allen and Zay Flowers. Guess how much they combined for? Though I did win a different league thanks to Keon Coleman, so there's pros and cons. But this game showed why Josh Allen won MVP. In a dire situation, Josh Allen was able to pull through and basically will his team to victory. Also, the defense stepping up and getting a crucial turnover helps. But on the Ravens side of things, this is a problem. The Ravens have choked away so many games in recent years that it's becoming a problem. They need to be able to close out games, especially one that could determine who gets the number 1 seed. They can't let off the gas like they did here. This isn't necessarily a Lamar problem either. It's a team problem. The defense falling apart in the final minutes is unacceptable. They have to clean this up before the playoffs. Otherwise, there's no chance they make it to a Super Bowl this year. Anyway, that's the video. If you enjoyed the content, please leave a like and sub. Also, comment what else about opening weekend interested you. I could only cover so much in one video, so let your opinions be known in the comment section. Anyway, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.